In Anglo-Saxon England, the Christian Church was a powerful organisation and played an important role in law. In cases where there was not enough evidence to prove if a person was guilty of committing a crime, it was left to God to judge. God's judgment was revealed through a trial by ordeal. The trials involved some kind of physical test, resulting in pain and occasionally death. The idea was that if a person was innocent, God would protect them. The trials were incredibly unfair and were a terrible way to decide if somebody had actually committed a crime or not. But to the church, they made sense.
Good idea, O Lord.
Of course it's a good idea!
The Anglo-Saxons had a few different types of trial by ordeal. Trial by cold water. The accused had their hands and feet tied with rope and were thrown into a river. This was done in the presence of a priest, who blessed the water to make it pure. One of two things would happen to the accused. Unable to swim, they would either float to the top of the water or sink to the bottom. If the accused floated, that showed their impure soul had been rejected by the water and were guilty of whatever crime they had supposedly committed. Now if the accused sank below the water, their soul had been accepted and they were judged to be innocent. Because they passed the trial, they would receive no punishment for a crime. However, there was a strong chance that they would have drowned in the process. Was this trial fair? Was it rational? No, but from it we can learn a lot about Anglo-Saxon beliefs. And trial by cold water was infamously used well up to the 17th century to trial those accused of witchcraft, not just in England but other countries as well. Trial by hot iron or trial by fire. The accused carried a red hot iron and walked a certain amount of steps holding it. The hot iron burned off the skin on the person's hand. Trial by hot water. The accused had to plunge their hand into a cauldron of boiling hot water to pull out a stone, and this would cause severe burning to the hand. After both of these trials, the hand was bandaged and then inspected a few days later. If the wound was healing cleanly, this demonstrated that God had judged the person to be innocent. If the wound had become infected, this showed that God had judged the person to be guilty. Trial by blessed bread. This could only be taken by priests or members of the clergy. The priest had to pray to God and ask that when he ate a piece of blessed bread, the bread would choke him if he had lied about the crime he was accused of. It's interesting to note that the church was responsible for issuing these trials, and it's probably no coincidence that they gave its members the easiest of all the trials. Trials by ordeal. Why did they use them? 1,000 years ago, England was a very superstitious country, and the church played an active role in people's lives. The Anglo-Saxons honestly believed that the trials were a way of allowing God to judge the guilty and innocent, sending people to heaven or hell once they died. Remember that these trials were merely a test. If the person failed the test, then they would still have to receive their punishment later. In Norman England, after the conquest of 1066, the same types of trial by ordeal continued, but the Normans made one important change. They introduced a new type of trial, trial by combat. After 1066, this was used to settle disputes over large sums of money or land.
I demand a trial by combat.
The two parties involved in the disputes would fight using swords or other types of weapons. Some members of the nobility could also choose champions to represent them in the trial and fight on their behalf. During the trial, the two combatants fought to the death, or until one could no longer fight and gave in.
Now stand aside, worthy adversary.
'Tis but a scratch.
A scratch? Your arm's off.
No, it isn't.
Well, what's that then?
I've heard worse.
You liar!
Come on, you pansy!
Anyone who gave in before being killed was later punished for the crime they had been accused of. The belief was that God would grant victory to the innocent party. If they were guilty, God ensured their defeat. In reality, the outcome of the trial depended more on strength and training. Trials by combat became an important part of English culture for centuries. Trials by ordeal were eventually ended in 1215 by Pope Innocent III, and this started the process of moving trials to a court, where judgments of guilt would be decided by judges and juries, who made verdicts based on evidence rather than superstitious beliefs.
What are you doing now?
I'm averting my eyes, O Lord.
Well, don't. It's like those miserable psalms. They're so depressing. Now knock it off.
Yes, Lord.
Right.